Welcome, everyone. Today we're going on a deep dive into a word and its connection to Islam.
Sounds interesting.
It is. The word is Byzantines Magarismos, and it's a Greek word.
Okay.
We're going to be using this paper by Dr. Hesham Hassan to guide us, and he called it Tracing the Roots of Morpheme Magarismos and its relation with Islam, a philological and historical study.
Catchy.
Right. So this paper dives deep. I mean, he goes into Byzantine sources, medieval Arabic, Syriac, Coptic texts.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really impressive, the breadth of his research.
So what is it about this word, Magarismos, that makes it so interesting?
One of the first things is that it pops up in the writings of John of Damascus.
Oh, of course. 8th century.
Yep. And he uses it to refer to Islam.
Interesting.
Yeah, and John of Damascus was really influential.
Huge in the early church.
Exactly.
Oh.
So the way he used this word really gives us insight into how early Christians viewed Islam.
Makes sense.
But here's the thing. It's not just a simple label. He uses Magarismos in a lot of different ways, like to describe things like apostasy, defilement, adultery, and even get this corruption of fasting.
Corruption of fasting.
Yeah. So what do you think that means given what we know about early Christianity?
Well, fasting was a big deal for them, right? Like a core practice, a way to purify yourself, to demonstrate your devotion.
Right.
So to accuse another group of corrupting that practice,
Oh, I see.
it implies they were seen as like twisting it, perverting it.
Like they were doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fascinating.
It really shows us how loaded this term Magarismos was.
It wasn't just like, oh, here's another religion. It's like,
Yeah, it was definitely a critique.
so we've got this very specific religiously charged use of the word in theological texts. But then Dr. Hassan takes us in a totally different direction with his research.
Where does he take us?
To 8th century Egypt.
Really?
And not to like monasteries or anything, but to everyday life.
Everyday life.
Yeah. He found Magarismos in Egyptian papyri, think contracts, letters, shopping lists.
Wow, so people were just like casually using this word.
It seems that way.
That's amazing.
Right. So it wasn't just this high-level theological debate term. It was out in the world.
Huh. So what did it mean to these everyday people? I mean, if it wasn't just about religion.
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the meaning was starting to broaden.
Broaden how?
Well, it still had that sense of something being wrong or bad.
Okay.
But it wasn't exclusively about religious differences anymore.
So more like a general term of disapproval.
Exactly. If you saw something that just seemed off, out of line, you might say, what Magarismos?
I like it's like their version of what the heck.
Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. It's incredible how a word can take on a life of its own,
It really is.
shifting and changing as it travels through time and different contexts.
Speaking of journeys, the journey of Magarismos isn't over yet.
What do you mean?
Well, there's another piece to this puzzle, the Magarites of the Byzantine Empire.
Magarites. Who are they?
They were boatmen operating in this maritime world of the Byzantine Empire, and their story adds a whole new dimension to our understanding of Magarismos.
Okay, you've definitely piqued my interest.
Great. We'll dive into the world of the Magarites and uncover their connection to this word in part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good. Can't wait.
Okay, so picture the Byzantine Empire, right? Huge network of trade routes, bustling ports, and a powerful navy patrolling the seas.
It's like a scene out of a movie. So where do these Magarites fit into all of this?
Well, they were boatmen operating within this whole maritime world.
Boatmen.
Yeah, and they were active in, naval affairs, maybe even involved in some battles and skirmishes.
Interesting you mentioned earlier that some scholars think they may have interacted with Islamic naval forces. So is that where the connection to Magarismos comes in?
Yeah, that's one of the main theories. Remember how Magarismos was initially associated with Islam?
Right, like with John of Damascus.
Exactly. So some historians think that the term Magarite might have actually come from Magarismos.
So it's like because these boatmen were operating in areas where the Byzantine and Islamic world kind of like overlapped, they were given a name that carried that sense of otherness that Magarismos had.
Exactly. It's like their very name became a way to mark them as different.
And maybe even to kind of like otherize them.
Yeah, there could definitely be an element of prejudice there.
It really makes you think about the power of language, right?
Absolutely.
Like how a simple word can be used to shape perceptions and create social hierarchies.
It's a great example of that.
So we've got this possible connection between Magarismos and the Magarites. But is there any hard evidence, or is it mostly speculation?
It's still being debated. Historians love a good debate.
Of course.
But even if we don't have all the answers, the fact that this connection exists, It really adds another layer to the story of Magarismos.
For sure, it shows how this word was moving and evolving and taking on new meanings in different contexts.
Exactly.
It wasn't just confined to the realm of religion anymore.
It was out in the world making waves, so to speak.
I see what you did there.
Okay, so we've traced Magarismos from the writings of John of Damascus to the everyday lives of people in 8th century Egypt, and now we've even explored its possible connection to these Byzantine boatmen.
Phew, it's been quite a journey through time and language.
And it's not over yet.
What do you mean?
Well, we've talked about what Magarismos meant in the past, but what about the present?
Oh, yeah. Does it still exist today?
It does. Magarismos is still alive and well in modern Greek.
Wow, I had no idea.
But its meaning has taken an interesting turn.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not about Islam anymore.
So what does it mean now?
We'll have to save that for part 3 of our deep dive.
Okay, you're killing me with the suspense.
Don't worry, we'll get to it, I promise. All right, so last time we left off with a bit of a cliffhanger. Magarismos is still around today in modern Greek.
Yeah, I'm dying to know what happened to it, how it's used now.
Well, it's no longer directly connected to Islam or those early religious ideas.
That makes sense. I mean, language changes over time, right?
It sure does, but the interesting thing is that Magarismos still has that sense of disapproval, like something being wrong or morally questionable.
Oh, so it still carries that judgment.
Yeah, it's like saying something is bad or messed up.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine you're reading the news and there's a story about a politician caught in a scandal.
Yeah.
You might shake your head and say, Magarismos.
Uh-huh. Okay, get it. So it's like a way to express disapproval or condemnation.
Exactly. It's like saying, this is just wrong.
Wow. So this word that started out as a way to define religious otherness has evolved into this broader expression of moral judgment.
It's pretty remarkable, right?
It really is. It shows how language can adapt and change while still holding on to echoes of its past.
And it also highlights how our understanding of right and wrong can shift over time.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
What might have been considered Magarismos centuries ago might not be seen that way today.
Exactly. And vice versa, new things might emerge that we would label as Magarismos.
It makes you wonder what future generations will think of our Magarismos.
That's a great question. It's like we're all part of this ongoing conversation about what's acceptable and what's not.
And language is the tool we use to have that conversation.
It's fascinating to see how a single word can encapsulate so much history, culture, and even our values.
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this whole deep dive into Magarismos.
What is it?
It's that words are more than just labels. They're these tiny windows into the past and present.
I like that they're like little time capsules carrying all this information about how people thought and lived and interacted.
Exactly. And by paying attention to those words, by really digging into their stories, we can learn so much about ourselves and the world around us.
It's an invitation to be curious about language, to explore its hidden depths.
And to appreciate the power it has to connect us across time and cultures.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into Magarismos.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It really has. And to our listeners out there, we hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
And if you're ever feeling curious about a word or its history, don't be afraid to do your own deep dive.
You never know what amazing stories you might uncover.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.